Welcome everyone to the 2018 TEDx Youth main event.
We are so excited for our presenters to share their ideas with you, and we hope that you're excited too.
They have been working so hard for this day.
These young men and women are helping shape a brighter future with their revolutionary thinking, and we are thrilled to be able to give them a platform to share their ideas.
So before we begin, we just wanted to briefly introduce ourselves. This here with me is Glory Bush, a TEDx alumna who enjoys reading and spending time with her family.
And this is Shruti Sahu, a two-time TEDx presenter who spends her free time either doing college applications or sleeping.
And we are your MCs today.
Since we want this day to be respectful to our presenters, we do have a few house rules.
With that said, we ask that you please turn off or silence any electronic devices you may have, as well as refrain from any flash photography. Since this is being live streamed on TEDxYouthFortWorth.com, we do ask that if you leave the room to do so between presenters. For your convenience, restrooms are located directly behind you, just past the double doors.
Now onto the event. Some of you may be wondering, what exactly is TED?
Well, TED was founded as a conference more than 25 years ago for the people from the worlds of technology, entertainment, and design.
And for the past 9 years, TED Talks have been available online for free on TED.com.
TED launched a program called TEDx, enabling anyone, anywhere in the world, of any age to host a TED-like conference.
TED lends its name, its format, a few simple guidelines, and some of its content to the independent TEDx event that you will see today.
Everything you see before you comes down to the hard work put in by our participants, volunteers, and TEDx team.
Today, our presenters are exploring the theme of The Future is You. We hope to be able to inspire you all today to make your own path and create your own future.
Here in Fort Worth, our event is hosted for youth and by youth. It is centered around November 20th, which is where United Nations celebrates Universal Children's Day.
The TEDx Youth Fort Worth team thanks you all for taking the time to be a part of this exciting global event.
It's all about ideas we're sharing. So let's get this show on the road with a few videos teaching us about TED.
From Kenya to Colombia, from Iraq to Korea, in slums, in schools, in prisons, and in theaters, every day people gather at TEDx events around the world to hear the best ideas bubbling up in their communities. Today, you are part of a global conversation about our shared future. So what is this TEDx? TEDx is an initiative of the TED Conference, a nonprofit devoted to ideas worth spreading. We grant free licenses to allow TED-like events to spread globally. This event today is based on the TED Conference format and ideals, but is independently organized by your local community. So please make sure to thank the team of volunteers who worked so hard on today's event. It's their ideas, dedication, and time that made it all possible. It's they who booked all the speakers, and the views you'll hear today are, of course, those of those speakers, not necessarily of TEDs. But we hope their talks spark an exciting conversation among you. This is a day for curiosity and for skepticism, for openness and for critical thinking, for inspiration and for action. The more you enter into it, the more you'll take out. And now, on with the show.
That's a little bit about TEDx. Now let's take a moment to learn about TEDx Youth Fort Worth. It is my distinguished pleasure to introduce our chairman, Dr. Jeff Johnson, who is a retired, highly decorated member of the United States Air Force and a veteran of 2 wars. His undergraduate degree is from MIT, while his PhD is from UT Dallas, and he is recently retired. But wait, there's more. Dr. Jeff has been a member of Toastmasters International since 1989 and holds Toastmasters' highest ranking as Distinguished Toastmaster. Dr. Jeff has taught public speaking and youth leadership here in Dallas-Fort Worth for nearly 30 years. His passion for helping young people find their voice, combined with his background in technology and design, combined to make a logical stepping stone for TED. Dr. Jeff is the TEDx licensee for Fort Worth and chairman of TEDx Youth Fort Worth. It is my honor to introduce to you Dr. Jeff Johnson.
you ever wondered what your purpose might be? To be honest, being 11, it really isn't something I thought much about. I mean, who's gonna listen to me? And I know my purpose may change, but what I now know is that you're never too young or old to make an impact.
Here, I have some Barbies. Let's pretend that the Barbies are me. At one point, I wanted to be environmental scientist Barbie. The next, it was supermodel Barbie. Then, it was CEO Barbie. Then, ski jumper Barbie. And diplomat Barbie, and so forth and so forth.
For those of you with something like a Husky or a German Shepherd, think of something that looks like that ordinary Husky. Right? Now, I'm hoping you are thinking of the mighty wolf. Now, when you are looking at this particular animal, you are basically looking at a primitive form of your dog. So how do we get from this to an abomination of the species that you put in a little dress? Well, that took a lot of time. So thousands of years ago, when we were scratching our heads and beating each other with sticks, we would eventually end up domesticating wolves and creating what we now call a dog. That we just say, hey, you want to go and play? But eventually, after a long time, people started to come up with stories like the Big Bad Wolf or Little Red Riding Hood. And that began to demonize what was sitting right in front of us, just in a completely different way. Thankfully, not everyone back in history thought that wolves were bad.
Can you remember a time in your life when you almost gave up hope on yourself and your dreams because you didn't have a positive force within you? Most of the time, you don't realize how negative you've become until the damage is done. This causes a lot of people to fall into depression, and then it becomes harder and harder to get themselves out of this rut.
Human trafficking is defined as modern-day slavery, in which traffickers use force, fraud, or coercion to lure their victims and force them into commercial sexual exploitation. In the DFW area alone, there are 300,000 victims of human trafficking, including almost 80,000 youth victims of sex trafficking. Houston, Texas is the #1 city, not in our state, but in our country, for human trafficking. The average lifespan of a victim from the day they are introduced to the trafficking trade is only 7 years. And here, at room 222 of the Super 8 Motel, in our own backyard, Fort Worth, Texas, was the headquarters of a statewide sex trafficking ring busted only 5 months ago.
So in an ad such as this one, this athlete is shown as pretty, but shouldn't she be shown hitting or kicking a ball? So she shouldn't be posing for a picture with her makeup and hair all done. She should be seen as an athlete. Since I researched this athlete, I know her name is Anna Kournikova. She is a professional tennis player, but you would have no idea what she does because this picture has nothing to do with her profession. Might as well just stick a tennis ball in the corner and call it Anna Kournikova in action. So, wait. How come men can pose however they want? They can pose in a suit, or they can pose without a shirt. It doesn't matter. So why is the standard so different for female and male athletes?
So you see me, right? Good. I was just making sure. I was just giving you a little time to make you think about me. Look at me. So as you can see, I am a girl. I'm black. I'm young. Depending on your age, you must think I'm young. And I'm pretty, or at least I think I'm pretty. So there are so many assumptions in the world, not just about race and ethnicity, but also about gender, shapes, size, and everything else. I just want to do a little experiment. Look at the people around you, one right next to you, or the person around you and come up with the first assumption you think of them. Now, look at yourself in a mirror. Think of the first assumption that they would think of you. What I'm trying to say here is think unto others as you would want others to think unto you. I'm a 14-year-old girl. I go to a very nice high school. Everyone's really friends with me. I'm a cheerleader. I have a really large family, actually. I have 5 brothers who are all in their 40s. One's about to turn 50. Now that's kind of weird. So let's look at this piano. So let's think of assumptions. Let's think of every note is one assumption. So as you may know, I'm a girl. I'm black. I'm young. And I am pretty. Now, as you may know, 4 notes of a song do not make up the entire song. It's the exact same for people. 4 assumptions that you make up of a person is not the whole person themselves. Now I want to show you who I truly am.
When you were little, were you told to color inside the lines? Who wanted to color outside those lines? You know, normal kids, they color on paper. No, I used my grandfather's head. My parents have always been part of my support team in addition to my teacher. With everything I've dreamed, they've always encouraged me to achieve it, even if one week is a ballerina or another week a soccer player, which, by the way, lasted as long as a week and ended with major tears. I think that all those kids who colored outside the lines are the kids who are truly going to make a difference in this world. They weren't afraid of being called different. They pushed through those boundaries.
Each and every decision that you make shapes who you are.
So those were little snippets from our last event back in March. In just a minute, you're going to see our social media page right up here. Please feel free to take a moment to take a picture, write it down so you can follow us on a few of those platforms. Perfect. And before we begin our live presentations, we're going to start off with a talk by Julian Treasures about why architects need ears. So please direct your attention to the screen.
The human voice. It's the instrument we all play. It's the most powerful sound in the world, probably. It's the only one that can start a war or say, I love you. And yet many people have the experience that when they speak, people don't listen to them. Why is that? How can we speak powerfully to make change in the world? What I'd like to suggest, there are a number of habits that we need to move away from. I've assembled for your pleasure here 7 deadly sins of speaking. I'm not pretending this is an exhaustive list. But these 7, I think, are pretty large. Habits that we can all fall into. First, gossip. Speaking ill of somebody who's not present. Not a nice habit, and we know perfectly well the person gossiping 5 minutes later will be gossiping about us. Second, judging. We know people who are like this in conversation, and it's very hard to listen to somebody if you know that you're being judged and found wanting at the same time. Third, negativity. You can fall into this. My mother, in the last years of her life, became very, very negative, and it's hard to listen. I remember one day I said to her, "It's October the 1st today," and she said, "I know, isn't it dreadful?" It's hard to listen when somebody's that negative. And another form of negativity, complaining. Well, this is the national art of the UK. It's our national sport. We complain about the weather, about sport, about politics, about everything. But actually, complaining is viral misery. It's not spreading sunshine and lightness in the world. Excuses. We've all met this guy. Maybe we've all been this guy. Some people have a blame thrower. They just pass it on to everybody else and don't take responsibility for their actions. And again, hard to listen to somebody who's being like that. Penultimate, the sixth of the seven, embroidery, exaggeration. It demeans our language, actually, sometimes. For example, if I see something that really is awesome, what do I call it? And then, of course, this exaggeration becomes lying, out and out lying, and we don't want to listen to people we know are lying to us. And finally, dogmatism. The confusion of facts with opinions. When those two things get conflated, you're listening into the wind. You know, somebody is bombarding you with their opinions as if they were true. It's difficult to listen to that. So here they are, 7 deadly sins of speaking. These are things I think we need to avoid. But is there a positive way to think about this? Yes, there is. I'd like to suggest that there are 4 really powerful cornerstones, foundations, that we can stand on if we want our speech to be powerful and to make change in the world. Fortunately, these things spell a word. The word is hail, and it has a great definition as well. I'm not talking about the stuff that falls from the sky and hits you on the head. I'm talking about this definition, to greet or acclaim enthusiastically, which is, I think, how our words will be received if we stand on these 4 things. So what do they stand for? See if you can guess. The H, honesty, of course. Being true in what you say, being straight and clear. The A is authenticity, just being yourself. A friend of mine described it as standing in your own truth, which I think is a lovely way to put it. The I is integrity, being your word, actually doing what you say, and being somebody people can trust. And the L is love. I don't mean romantic love, but I do mean wishing people well. For 2 reasons. First of all, I think absolute honesty may not be what we want. I mean, my goodness, you look ugly this morning. Perhaps that's not necessary. Tempered with love, of course, honesty is a great thing. But also, if you're really wishing somebody well, it's very hard to judge them at the same time. I'm not even sure you can do those 2 things simultaneously. So, hail. Also, now that's what you say, and it's like the old song, it is what you say, it's also the way that you say it. You have an amazing toolbox. This instrument is incredible, and yet this is a toolbox that very few people have ever opened. I'd like to have a little rummage in there with you now, and just pull a few tools out that you might like to take away and play with, which will increase the power of your speaking. Register, for example. Now, falsetto register may not be very useful most of the time, but there's a register in between. I'm not going to get very technical about this for any of you who are voice coaches. You can locate your voice, however. So if I talk up here in my nose, you can hear the difference. If I go down here in my throat, which is where most of us speak from most of the time, but if you want weight, you need to go down here to the chest. You hear the difference? We vote for politicians with lower voices. It's true, because we associate depth with power and with authority. That's register. And we have timbre. It's the way your voice feels. Again, the research shows that we prefer voices which are rich, smooth, warm, like hot chocolate. Well, if that's not you, that's not the end of the world, because you can train. Go get a voice coach. And there are amazing things you can do with breathing, with posture, and with exercises to improve the timbre of your voice. Then prosody. I love prosody. This is the sing-song, the meta-language that we use in order to impart meaning. It's route 1 for meaning in conversation. People who speak all on one note are really quite hard to listen to if they don't have any prosody at all. That's where the word monotonic comes from, or monotonous, monotone. Also, we have repetitive prosody now coming in, where every sentence ends as if it were a question, when it's actually not a question, it's a statement. And if you repeat that one over and over, it's actually restricting your ability to communicate through prosody, which I think is a shame. So let's try and break that habit. Pace. I can get very, very excited by saying something really, really quickly, or I can slow right down to emphasize. And at the end of that, of course, is our old friend, silence. There's nothing wrong with a bit of silence in a talk, is there? We don't have to fill it with ums and ahs. It can be very powerful. Of course, pitch often goes along with pace to indicate arousal, but you can do it just with pitch. Where did you leave my keys? Where did you leave my keys? It's a slightly different meaning in those two deliveries. And finally, volume. I can get really excited by using volume, sorry about that if I startled anybody, or I can have you really pay attention by getting very quiet. Some people broadcast the whole time. Try not to do that. That's called sodcasting. Imposing your sound on people around you carelessly and inconsiderately. Not nice. Of course, where this all comes into play most of all is when you've got something really important to do. It might be standing on a stage like this and giving a talk to people. It might be proposing marriage, asking for a raise, a wedding speech, whatever it is. If it's really important, you owe it to yourself to look at this toolbox and the engine that it's going to work on. And no engine works well without being warmed up. Warm up your voice. Actually, let me show you how to do that. Would you all like to stand up for a moment? I'm going to show you the 6 vocal warm-up exercises that I do before every talk I ever do. Anytime you're going to talk to anybody important, do these. First, arms up. Deep breath in and sigh out. Like that. One more time. Very good. Now we're going to warm up our lips, and we're going to go bop, 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 bop. Very good. And now, just like when you were a kid. Now your lips should be coming alive. We're going to do the tongue next with exaggerated la, 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 la. Beautiful. You're getting really good at this. And then roll an R. That's like champagne for the tongue. Finally, and if I can only do one, the pros call this the siren. It's really good. It starts with we and goes to or. The we is high, the or is low. So you go wee, or wee. Fantastic. Give yourselves a round of applause. Take a seat. Thank you. Next time you speak, do those in advance. Now, let me just put this in context to close. This is a serious point here. This is where we are now, right? We speak not very well into people who simply aren't listening in an environment that's all about noise and bad acoustics. I have talked about that on this stage in different phases. What would the world be like if we were speaking powerfully to people who are listening consciously in environments which were actually fit for purpose? Or to make that a bit larger, what would the world be like if we were creating sound consciously and consuming sound consciously and designing all our environments consciously for sound? That would be a world that does sound beautiful, and one where understanding would be the norm. And that is an idea worth spreading. Thank you. Thank you.
That was a great video by Julian Treasures. I was back there doing all those things myself. Kind of felt like Sharpay from High School Musical, you know, the me, 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 ba, ba, ba. Great. All right. Now, I hope you're as excited as I am to hear our first talk of the day. It's been amazing watching Nicholas challenge our preconceived notions about junk food. Now, this is a problem my mom claims that I have, but let's see what Nicholas has to say about it. Please help me welcome Nicholas Abram with his talk, Beat the Distractions.
How many of you have ever been on a diet? Okay, that's almost all of you in here. And I know what you're thinking. What is this kid talking about? He looks like he's never been on a diet, and he doesn't need to be on one. Well, fortunately, I have been on a diet. Around the 6th grade, I stopped swimming competitively. And since I wasn't swimming an hour 3 days a week, neither was I doing any type of exercise. As you would think, I started gaining some weight. And again, you're thinking, well, how old does this kid look? Maybe 13 or so? He probably only gained 5 pounds. Well, in reality, I gained around 25 pounds. And let me tell you, 25 pounds could be a lot of weight for this little frame. I had trouble running because I would become short of breath, and I had a constant fear I would get made fun of at school. Here's a picture of me at my heaviest. Crazy, right? I realized I had to make some changes to my eating habits and my lifestyle. So, I returned to playing sports in school. And during lunch, I started eating salads and sometimes a normal lunch, partly because my parents blocked me off from eating all that unhealthy stuff like the hamburgers, chips, and cookies. I'm still blocked to this day. The main reason everyone struggles with eating junk food is just because it's so much more convenient to eating healthy. It costs less and it takes less time. But is it really more convenient? All right, I'm about to go into my inner math teacher. Let's start off with some research that shows eating healthy costs more and is less healthy. Eating healthy costs more and is more healthy than junk food. But before I even go into that, how do you figure out if you're overweight or obese? Well, you figured that out by calculating your BMI, or your body mass index. You can figure out your BMI by your kilograms divided by your meters squared. A healthy BMI is 19 to 25, overweight is 25 to 30, and obese is 30 and above. But let's start off with the experiment. Around the beginning of 6th grade, I was 150 pounds, which is 68 kilos, and I was about 5'2", which is 1.6 meters tall. If you put that into the equation, I had a BMI of 26, so yes, I was overweight. But going back to my research, I saw that homemade salads are just better than purchased salads. They cost less and they're more healthy. A homemade salad is only 400 calories versus a bought salad, which is 730. But let's not forget the price too. The homemade salad is only $4.87 versus the bought salad, which is $13.05. But you're probably thinking, who goes to a fast food place for a salad? Good point. We all normally get the burger combo. I went to a variety of fast food places near me, and I got their combo. And I realized the average combo price is only $7.50. But for a family of 4, that's $30. Versus doing it yourself, that's only $21. But you're probably wondering, how did I get to $21? I got all the ingredients needed to make a hamburger and listed it at market price. And then, you're probably wondering, where are the missing fries? Well, we are trying to eat healthier, so we use the extra lettuce to make a side salad. And you can't have a salad without tomatoes. And tomatoes are $1.49 a pound, which that bumps up our total to a total of $22.50. But that's only $22.50 the first time. This because you have to buy all the condiments such as ketchup, mustard, and all that other stuff. The second time, you're only going to pay $5.69 because the buns come in a package of 8. And you might decide to buy onions again, but most people don't eat onions like that, so I just left it out of the equation. I'm not telling you to remove meat from your life, because you still need to have protein to maintain a good diet. According to the USDA, which is the U.S. Department of Agriculture, they recommend 2 daily portions of chicken, fish, turkey, and meat, and a moderation of red meat. But let me go back to the other stuff, because you just saw me skip over some slides. I'm not telling you to remove meat from your life. You still need to be conscious about what you eat. Have you ever eaten something salty and later that day you don't feel so good? And you also put yourself at a risk for having high blood pressure. But we all know if you eat something healthy, you won't have a chance to gain any diseases such as heart disease, clogged arteries, diabetes, the list goes on. How many of you guys have seen the 2004 documentary called Super Size Me? Okay. A good portion of the audience have. In this documentary, Morgan Spurlock eats 3 burgers a day for 30 days. And at the end of the 30 days, he's gained 24 pounds, has crazy cholesterol levels, and looks pretty bad in his before and after pictures. And I don't know if this is a result of Super Size Me, but McDonald's added healthy options to the kids menu, such as the apples and the carrots. Honestly, why would you eat junk food? It costs more, it's less healthy, and if you eat something healthy, you actually know what's in the meat. But how many of us live to eat? You just can't wait to turn to the next candy bar or burger. Now, how many of us eat to live? I know it can sound a little bit boring, but it doesn't have to be. Imagine biting into a big, juicy apple. Doesn't your mouth just start to water? Oh, sorry, I'm being a bit off track. But back to the Super Size Me. And it looks, Super Size Me, you know how he's gained 24 pounds. And he looks really bad in his before and after pictures. Mentally, replace his face with yours. And besides, nothing tastes as good as thin feels. And I'm not saying you can't treat yourself. It's okay to have a cheat day here and there. I, for one, treat myself with this. I'm completely kidding. I think if you eat 80% healthy and 20% unhealthy, that's completely fine. Because always eating healthy can be really daunting. And that 20% is when you just treat yourself for eating good all the time. But you also need to beat the distractions. Have you ever bought a bowl of popcorn and before the movie's even over, it's already gone? No, matter of fact, before the movie even starts, it's gone. Or have you ever eaten so much that you're afraid to move? Or fallen asleep from too much turkey at Thanksgiving dinner? Distracted eating is when you just keep on eating without focusing about what's going into your mouth and how fast it's going into it. I mentioned earlier I gained 25 pounds. Yes, it's true, I had little to no exercise. But I also eating happened when I was just sitting around bored. So I would just sit around and I would just eat and eat without really focusing on what was going into my mouth. When you leave here today, I want you to consider eating healthier. It doesn't all have to be at once. Just when you get healthy for a snack, eat strawberries instead of chips. And just slowly start removing candy out of your life. Slow steps towards a longer, healthier lifestyle. Down with the distractions and up with the health. Thank you.
Great job, Nicholas. Your talk has truly inspired me, and I'm sure many others, to rethink our healthy decision food choices. Although maybe you can mention that treat yourself part to my mom again, just so she can lay off the kale smoothies. While Nicholas challenges us to make healthier choices, Christian shares with us his unique experience. He teaches us about how we can learn from unpredictable disasters. I encourage everyone to tune into Christian's vital message as he informs us on the importance of finding the light. Please help me welcome Christian Otero.
Hi, you may not know me, but I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. Let me tell you a little bit about Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is a beautiful, gorgeous island. It has amazing beaches, breathtaking mountains, rivers, lakes, and so much more. I love waking up in the morning to the sound of the birds chirping outside, going outside and the weather not being too hot nor too cold. I was able to visit my friends and family whenever I wanted. A year ago in my life, I would wake up early in the morning and I'd go to school until 4 p.m. And afterwards, I'd go to soccer practice and I would do this all over again the next day. My life was simple. All this changed in a blink of an eye when a hurricane struck Puerto Rico. It was mid-September 2017 when Hurricane Maria warning was given. I remember the chaos the days after they had announced the hurricane. Everybody was running around looking for food, water, batteries, anything that they thought was necessary. And I was scared because for the first time in my teenage years, I was in a life or death situation. September 17th, the day of Hurricane Maria, the day my life changed in ways I've never imagined. I remember standing in my room as I looked outside and I saw how the trees started shaking, the roof tiles flying around, the streets flooded with water, the intense sound of the wind as it hit my home. And this feeling of fear came upon me as I didn't know what was to come. In the afternoon after the hurricane had passed, all I could see was the detrimental damage to everything around me. I saw how the trees had fallen and covered the streets, and this caused madness on the road. People's houses were filled with water. It was horrible. This was a tragedy for Puerto Rico. The island was frozen. People were scared because they didn't know they had enough food or water to last them until the hurricane's aftermath had ended. The cell towers had been destroyed, and people couldn't communicate with each other. And I was scared because for the first time in my life, I was in a situation where I didn't know if my family or friends were okay. After the course of a few weeks, my life started to become a routine. I would wake up early in the morning to help around the neighborhood around my house by cutting down trees. I'd help around my house to fix things, and I had to wash clothes with my hands because we didn't have a washing machine because there was no electricity. My family and I were doing everything to overcome this obstacle. But it wasn't only that. My grandma, she had been in a hospital for a few months now, and she was in a critical state that at any moment she could take her last breath. And because there was no electricity, the hospital couldn't function correctly, and this caused a lot of panic in my family. She fought for as long as she could, but I later on received the news that she had passed away. During the hurricane, a part of my family was lost. After not having electricity or a water supply for a few weeks now, I began to see a light in all this darkness. It had been a while, and now seeing kids just being kids, running around on their bicycles, playing and laughing. During all this, my friends and I, we would run around the neighborhood, we would talk until the sunset, and we would help our neighborhood. People started to connect with each other. I started to meet neighbors that I'd never spoken to before. People were working together as a community to overcome this obstacle, and it was the most beautiful light I've ever seen. One of my neighbors, he would cook for the entire street that I lived on, and people would come together to talk and laugh, and for a moment, I forgot about all the bad things that were going on. Even though the hurricane had such a negative impact on the island, I found an opportunity to grow, to learn, to mature. After not having any electricity, my mom decided that it'd be better if I go live with my aunt and uncle in Texas for a while everything improves back home. Even though it was painful to leave my friends, my family, my dogs, and my cat, I knew it was for the better. My time in Texas, I made some great friends and had an unbelievably great time. And as I come back to look at it all, this all started because of Hurricane Maria that hit my home. I would say it changed my life for the better. I started to appreciate more the sacrifices that my family does for me, as well as for my parents. I started to appreciate and treasure the time I have with family and friends, and not to lose focus of the things that truly matter in life. I realized that the material things in life don't matter, and what truly matters is family. Because of their love and support, I wouldn't be the person that I am today. After all that my family and I endured, I truly found the light in the hurricane. Even though my time in Texas has been unforgettable, I long for the days that I can go back to my beautiful island. Throughout this adversity, I found an opportunity to grow. So when you come across a problem or any sort of obstacle, never believe it's for the worst. Because even if you can't see it now, later on you will realize that it'll help you grow as a person. So next time you come across a problem, are you gonna run from it? Or are you gonna look for the light in it? Thank you.
Thank you, Christian, for sharing with us how it is still possible to find the light in the face of adversity. Your idea and passion for this subject is truly inspiring. Christian focuses us on finding a light in the dark, while Ishan will explain his idea. I believe that his idea plays an important role in the future in how we will manage our resources. Prepare to be amazed by Ishan Singhal with his talk, Why Waste Waste?
Fossil fuels. They're terrible, as many of you probably know. You might have been to the gas station recently and seen that the price of gas is off the charts. But that isn't the only fault of fossil fuels. They're also only 33% efficient. And there's only about 50 years of oil left in the world at our current rate of consumption. But worst of all, they're destroying our home, Earth. Now, even though scientists are constantly developing clean and renewable energy sources, we could just harness the energy that we already waste. For example, you might have been sitting on a couch, gotten up, and felt that the couch is warm. Well, this is the energy this is your body heat that you've created, but we aren't utilizing any of it to satisfy our daily energy needs. Even cars and airplanes waste valuable energy, which can be used to give power back to these vehicles. Walking, as well as human waste, create energy, but what are we doing with it? Nothing. And these are just a few examples. So now you might be wondering, all right, harnessing wasted energy is an interesting idea, but why is this better than other energy sources? Well, fossil fuels are terrible, as I previously mentioned, but there has been a rise in renewable energy, like solar energy and wind power. Now, renewable energy sources are great because they're clean and renewable, as the name mentions, but they're also extremely expensive and inefficient. And solar panels are a great example. Now, solar panels for the average home cost a whopping $25,000 to $35,000. And even though this initial investment may seem lucrative in the long run, it's still an exorbitant amount of money. And that's because paying off the initial investment can take up to 20 years. And that's longer than I have been on the face of the earth. Solar panels are also not very reliable because they can only produce energy when the sun is out. And they're also only 12% efficient. And just in case you were wondering, wind turbines aren't much better. Wind turbines aren't as common, but a residential one you might see on a farm, for example, costs an astounding $48,000 to $65,000. And wind turbines are also only 45% efficient, which is better than fossil fuels and solar panels, but is still very little. Now, harnessing wasted energy has all the advantages that renewable energy has because it's clean and renewable, but I also don't think it's that expensive. And this is because objects that harness wasted energy are embedded into everyday items, unlike renewable energy. The only fault of fossil fuels is that they might not be very efficient, but as technologies continue to improve, inventions that accomplish this job will only become more efficient. So now you might be wondering, all right, this works, but how do we harness wasted energy? Well, even though this is a relatively new concept, there have been a few inventions created to accomplish this job. The most common being regenerative braking, or more commonly known as regen braking, which turns the kinetic energy of the car into usable energy when the driver brakes their vehicle. Now, many car companies such as Toyota and Tesla, whose cars you've probably seen on the road, have installed regen braking into their hybrid and electric vehicles. Another group of researchers has developed a material that converts heat into energy. Now, this material can be installed in cars because a little less than half of the car's energy is vented as heat and wasted. Now, inventions that harness wasted energy don't even necessarily have to have any technological components. For example, most watches use a battery, but some watches use the motion of your arms when you walk to swing a pendulum, which turns the hands of the watch without any tech or a battery. Even something as simple as a jacket, which many of you might be wearing right now, is harnessing wasted energy because it's trapping the body heat that you create inside of you and using it to warm you. I personally am also in the process of inventing a device that harnesses wasted energy for a STEM showcase at my school. My goal is to charge a battery when you walk. Now, though this idea may seem a bit far-fetched, I have a method to my madness. Now, essentially what happens is the top of the part is where the foot goes, then beneath that is a pocket of air. When you step down, the air gets pushed out of the air pocket, which turns a little propeller, which turns a DC motor and charges a battery. Now, at the moment, this is still a model, but it's probably not the most efficient or comfortable thing at the moment. But if someone with more experience than me were to create a shoe like this, it would probably be more efficient and comfortable. Now, this harnessing wasted energy is still a relatively new idea. But you can support and encourage the growth of harnessing wasted energy. The easiest thing to do is to purchase an invention that harnesses wasted energy. Now, at the moment, there probably aren't any on the market. But in a few years, this definitely won't be the case. Essentially, what I'm trying to say is if the shoe that I just talked about comes out onto the market, buy it. Now, if you have a little bit more experience in this field, you can even create an invention that harnesses wasted energy. Now, for example, what if in the future there's a bed that charges your phone at night from the body heat that you created when you were sleeping? But if there's one thing that I know for sure, it's that this is the next big thing. So let's get ready for it.
Wow. I can flip a switch. That's about it. Thanks to you, Ishan, I have the hopes of living in a world where I can forget my charger because I know I can charge my phone for my shoe. That's pretty amazing. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you're very excited from hearing our first 3 presenters' ideas so far and are eager to discuss any thoughts you may have about them. So we have provided a break during which you may visit with our presenters in the reception area located directly behind you. We will return from this break in 10 minutes. Thank you.
Don't you love a good nap? Just stealing away that small block of time to curl up on your couch for that sweet moment of escape. It's one of my favorite things, but something I took for granted before I began experiencing homelessness as a teenager. The ability to take a nap is only reserved for stability and sureness, something you can't find when you're carrying everything you own in your book bag and carefully counting the amount of time you're allowed to sit in any given place before being asked to leave. I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, bouncing from house to house with a loving, close-knit family as we struggled to find stability in our finances. But when my mom temporarily lost herself to mania, and when that mania chose me as its primary scapegoat through both emotional and physical abuse, I fled for my safety. I had come to the conclusion that homelessness was safer for me than being at home. I was 16. During my homelessness, I joined Atlanta's 3,300 homeless youth in feeling uncared for, left out, and invisible each night. There wasn't, and still is not, any place for a homeless miner to walk off the street to access a bed. I realized that most people thought of homelessness as some kind of lazy, drug-induced squalor and inconvenience. But that didn't represent my book bag full of clothes and school books or my A-plus grade point average. I would sit on my favorite bench downtown and watch as the hours pass by until I can sneak in a few hours of sleep on couches, in cars, in buildings, or in storage units. I, like thousands of other homeless youth, disappeared into the shadows of the city while the whole world kept spinning as if nothing at all had gone terribly wrong. The invisibility alone almost completely broke my spirit. But when I had nothing else, I had the arts. Something that didn't demand material wealth from me in exchange for refuge. A few hours of singing, writing poetry, saving up enough money to disappear into another world at a play kept me going and jolted me back to life when I felt at my lowest. I would go to church services on Wednesday evenings, and desperate for the relief the arts gave me, I would go a few hours early, slip downstairs, and into a part of the world where the only thing that mattered was whether or not I can hit the right note in the song I was perfecting that week. I would sing for hours. It gave me so much strength to give myself permission to just block it all out and sing. 5 years later, I started my organization, Chop Art, which is a multidisciplinary arts organization for homeless minors. Chop Art uses the arts as a tool for trauma recovery by taking what we know about building community and restoring dignity and applying that to the creative process. Chop Art is headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia, with additional programs in Hyderabad, India, and Accra, Ghana. And since I started in 2010, we've served over 40,000 teens worldwide. Our teens take refuge in the transformative elements of the arts, and they depend on the safe space Chop Art provides for them to do that. And often, invisible population uses the arts to step into their light. But that journey out of invisibility is not an easy one. We have a sibling pair, Jeremy and Kelly, who's been with our program for over 3 years. They come to the Chop Art classes every Wednesday evening. But about a year ago, Jeremy and Kelly witnessed their mom seize and die right in front of them. They watched as the paramedics failed to revive her. They cried as their father signed over temporary custody to their Chop Art mentor, Aaron, without even allowing them to take an extra pair of clothes on their way out. This series of events broke my heart. But Jeremy and Kelly's faith and resolve in Chop Art is what keeps me grounded in this work. Kelly calling Aaron in her lowest moment, knowing that Aaron would do whatever she could to make them feel loved and cared for, is proof to me that by using the arts as an entry point, we can heal and build our homeless youth population. and we continue to build. We built with Devin, who became homeless with his family when his mom had to choose between medical bills or the rent. He discovered his love of painting through chop art. We built with Liz, who's been on the streets most of her teenage years, but turns to music to return to herself when her traumas feel too heavy for her young shoulders. We built for Maria, who uses poetry to heal after her grandfather died in the van she's living in with the rest of her family. And so, to the youth out there experiencing homelessness, let me tell you, you have the power to build within you. You have a voice through the arts that doesn't judge what you've been through. So never stop fighting to stand in your light, because even in your darkest times, we see you. Thank you.
Wow, isn't that incredible? Malika is making a huge impact on homeless children in her community, and I hope you have all been inspired by her talk. Now we want to hear from some more of our live speakers. Please help me welcome Tanish Kothapalli with his talk, False Evidence, where he will share with us some of the events in his life and how he has learned to overcome challenges.
We all want to be brave, to be courageous, and to live without fear. But most of us don't know how to, or don't know the steps to take to overcome these fears. All of our fears are different and make us who we are. So one way you could overcome this fear is by finding people to help you. Since no one will have the same fears as you do, they can help you overcome your fear, and maybe you can help them overcome theirs. I have two major fears in my life and a bunch of ones that don't really matter as much. The two major fears that I have is the fear of heights and the fear of embarrassment. Let's talk about heights. So, one day I went to Six Flags and my parents forced me to go on the oil derrick observation tower. I later realized that it's 300 feet tall. That's like 50 of me. Really tall. I still went on it for some reason, and then it was nighttime, windy, and the wind made the building sway. I never went to look over the railing. I was right beside the elevator the whole time, clenching to the rail. And if things couldn't get any worse, there was a little kid right here, just jumping on the thing, making it shake. It was the longest 10 minutes of my life. And when I finally made it back on the ground, I felt like a plane just landed and I'm leaving the airport. As you can probably tell, I have not completely overcome this fear. But I have come up with some ways to lessen it. I've not come up with all the ways, though. Other people in my life have helped me, have given me tips to overcome it. So first, I learned that fear is an illusion. It's a trick that it plays on our mind to make it our reality. So the thing that I do is first, I look around. I look around and see why other people aren't scared and why I am. Next, I try to calm myself and pretend you're on a plane in the turbulence. Trying to calm yourself might be very hard. And usually what I do, I just think about statistics. No, a plane's not going to crash. You'll be there. It's fine. In 2 hours, you'll leave the airport, and then you can go and get a Starbucks. You'll be fine, trust me. And then finally, you need to distract yourself. Usually on an airplane, I get out my phone, listen to music, probably play a lot of games. Sadly, there's no internet on an airplane, though. And my second fear is the fear of embarrassment. So I play cross country at my school. Don't get me wrong, I'm not good at cross country. I just play it because I have to. Anyway, I play cross country, and one day the coaches made us do box relays. And we were confused what box relays were. We thought we had to like run in a shape of a box. And everyone seemed to, and then the other coach brought out a cardboard box and said, you're going to be running around the field in a cardboard box. Everyone seemed to love the idea. Me, on the other hand, though, I was terrified for the other people who were going to watch me run in a box. Like, try to imagine me in a box running and you're going to be watching. No, don't imagine it. Let me show you. Okay, so I look pretty ridiculous, don't I? No, you try to imagine yourself where I am, and I'm going to be laughing at you. That's how I felt. It was one of the worst feelings I ever had. But you can't say, I'm sorry, I just got sick and leave practice. I still had to run, and I thought about, I had to look around. I looked around at the other people and said, why do they like running in a box and I don't? Then I thought about, I had to calm myself. And usually I was like, it's a Friday. There's going to be a bunch of homework. By Monday, they'll all forget about it. It'll be fine. And then finally, I just thought about beating the person in front of me. And somehow, our team got second place. A teacher of mine told me that fear is false evidence appearing real. And after I thought about this acronym for a while, it made sense. A building's not going to fall over or a plane's not going to crash. It's just my fear controlling my mind and becoming my reality. So the steps I take to overcome my fear, and I hope these steps will help you, is by looking around at other people and asking yourself why they aren't afraid and you are. Calm yourself so you won't be overwhelmed by your fear, and distracting yourself so your fear won't take control of you. And after all of this, I want you to try to constantly push yourself to overcome your fear. You might not completely overcome it, but I want you to try to lessen it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanish, for inspiring us to face our fears head on and conquer them. Is everyone still having a good time? Our presenters are doing such a good job. While Tanish challenges us to move out of our comfort zone, Bailey inspires other youth to become entrepreneurs and future innovators. I'm thrilled to introduce y'all to Bailey Wilson, a 17-year-old who has a passion for helping other young people like herself find their voice and make a difference in society. I am so excited for you to hear what she has to say. Please welcome Bailey Wilson with her talk, Lemonade Stand 2.0.
Hi, everyone. Okay, so I'm sure you're probably thinking youth entrepreneurship. And no, I'm not talking about the time that you were 8 and you thought you invented cheese fries. I'm talking about lemonade stands. So I'm sure you guys remember having a lemonade stand. Raise your hand if you had one whenever you were a kid. Or maybe you see them in the summer around your neighborhood. The lemonade was too sour, or it was too sweet, and it was grainy because there was so much sugar. But you were performing business. You had your own business, a lemonade stand. So that's the basic example of youth entrepreneurship. So meet Liv, a young entrepreneur herself. She's 11, from New Hampshire. Whenever she was 8, her tech-savvy mom helped her start a blog. Super cool, super fun. She talked about how much she loved reading and sharing literacy. She now has 30,000 followers on Twitter. She now keynotes at international conferences, speaks at elementary schools around the world, and she loves to share her passion. She's an utterly powerful example of a young entrepreneur, and officially more accomplished than most people in this room. And this is Colin. He's a freshman at Marian University, and he started his own business whenever he was in high school called Educate. He makes educational games for educators. He won an entrepreneurship contest and won over 20 grand, and he's a young entrepreneur himself. And now, meet me, Bailey Wilson. I started my own nonprofit whenever I was 15 called Texas Teens Teach. And basically my journey of starting a nonprofit started a few years ago. I learned about how many girls don't have access to education around the world, and that was so impactful on me. I realized that education should be accessible to everyone. So in my own community, I found that most kids don't have opportunities like I do. So I started teaching courses about legislation, neuroscience, and entrepreneurship to low-income libraries across the DFW area. But through meeting all these entrepreneurs like myself, Colin, and Liv, I've had the experience of realizing what all these young entrepreneurs have in common. First, they all want to make a difference in their community, including myself. Liv wanted to share literacy and her love for reading. Colin wanted to share his passion for financial literacy as well. And I wanted to share my passion of making sure that everybody has access to an enjoyable education. Generation Z, my generation, anyone born between 1995 and 2012. Common among Generation Zers is that everyone wants to make an impact, and this has resulted into youth entrepreneurs wanting to make a difference, which is something that we all share. So the lemonade stand is no longer the moneymaker. It's now the change maker. The second thing that all these young entrepreneurs have in common is the development of self-confidence, embracement of their own individuality, including myself. I've been able to speak at other conferences, and Liv herself has keynoted at an international conference. In fact, just last week, she spoke in Toronto. And Colin is able to come out of his shell, and as well as Liv. I was once really shy, and now I'm no longer shy. I'm very outgoing. So with that, entrepreneurship can be a tool to empower young adults and children to develop self-esteem. Did you know that over 85% of the population is victim to low self-esteem? But what if we use youth entrepreneurship to empower people to develop their own individuality and self-esteem and to grow confidence in themselves? So we normally don't think about entrepreneurship in the way that it gives kids confidence. But having kids interact with entrepreneurship, developing their own nonprofits, and embracing their own inventions and businesses is absolutely powerful. We often underestimate that. Whenever I was a kid, I used to watch the Disney Channel, and there would be these commercials that would come on, and these kids would have inventions, businesses, and apps and things, and I always thought they were geniuses and savants, and I didn't realize that I could do that myself, and every kid can, and that's the truth. So lastly, and most importantly, the thing that all these kids had in common, and every young entrepreneur, is the creativity and originality that comes from each of these ideas. Young kids are so powerful in their ideas. They aren't stopped by society's standards yet. They're young and creative. And so often we underestimate that. Franklin D. Roosevelt once said, "We cannot always build the future for our youth, but we can build our youth for the future." So what if we encourage these young kids to pursue their imaginative, innovative ideas and the ingenuity, and we realize how powerful their ideas are, and we encourage them to start their own businesses, nonprofits, and to, their inventions? It would change our economy, our society, how we teach kids. Sometimes starting a business or nonprofit is not for everybody, and there's nothing wrong with that. But investing in these ideas is utterly powerful. And it doesn't mean that you have to start it yourself or be an entrepreneur, but you can easily become a part of these organizations and support young people. Whether you're an educator, a parent, or a consumer, encouraging these kids to think outside the box can change our society. When you invest in the young people, you invest in the future of today. Who knows, maybe your kid might start a nonprofit or a business, or maybe an 8-year-old will cure cancer someday. All I know is that young people are our future, and we should invest in their thinking and their ideas. So next time you see a lemonade stand, stop by, talk to the kid, encourage them. Maybe they want to start a restaurant someday. Maybe they want to start a lemonade stand chain. Who knows? But maybe buy that lemonade glass and just encourage them. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bailey, for reminding us that kids' ideas are unique and that we can all be entrepreneurs if we put our minds to it. Now for our next presenter in this session, Nicole Fatui. I am so excited to introduce y'all to Nicole, a young girl who realizes that being bashful may not be what we think. Please welcome Nicole with her talk, The Power of Shyness.
what does it mean to be shy? Well, today I'm going to be talking to you about the power of shyness. There are two types of people in this world: introverts, shy, and extroverts, life of the party. But being an introvert doesn't mean that you're only shy. Maybe you have anxiety, or you have panic attacks in situations you are most uncomfortable with, like giving a talk in front of a large group. Or maybe you're shy, where you're uncomfortable with confronting people you're not familiar with. Or maybe you're bashful, which many people confuse with meaning the same thing as being shy. But bashfulness can have a different meaning, which can be like you're able to confront somebody in your work environment, but when it comes to a one-on-one conversation, you're not able to keep the conversation flowing. But how do people obtain shyness? Maybe something happened when they were younger, like an event. Maybe they had to give a talk in front of a large group, or sing a song, or had an act in a play. And during that event, maybe they messed up, like they forgot a line in the act, or a verse in the song, or stumbled in their speech, and saw somebody laughing in the crowd and felt embarrassed. And when they're put in that situation again, they are shy. Or it could be cultural. I believe that I may have adopted my shyness from my family. My family is very culturally diverse. My mom from Russia and my dad from Iran. In both those countries, shyness is a characteristic for women. Shyness has a lot of obstacles in life. One example is when I went into 4th grade, I moved into this new school. I started the year off not knowing anybody and being new. A year goes by and I move into 5th grade. I started the year again, getting used to the environment, but still being alone. One day I sat at my lunch by myself, and a girl from the table behind me comes up and says, "Hi, my name is Caitlin." The girl right here behind me, that's Caitlin. And she was the first friend that I made in 1 year. And that says a lot for a disadvantage, because after that one hello, we never stopped talking. But it just took me 1 year to make one friend. But for others, it may take them just 1 week to make 10 friends. Shyness can, let's talk about the power that shyness can bring. One good example, shyness can bring. Most people look at the disadvantages that shyness has. For example, how lonely the person looks, or how quiet they are. There's a bright side to that dark side of shyness. One good example is Lady Gaga. Yes, you heard me right, Lady Gaga. And I'm quite shocked that a famous singer like her would be shy. Lady Gaga was quoted saying, "I don't meet that many other artists because I'm kind of shy. I may not be shy with the people I know, but with the people I don't know, I'm very shy. I'm shy in the Hollywood scene. I feel a bit like I did in high school, like I don't fit in." Even though that may seem like a disadvantage to you, but did it ever occur to you that maybe that's what drives her to be her? Because an obstacle is only perceived to be negative in your mind. Shyness didn't stop her. If anything, I think it's what drives her to be the famous singer she is today. So remember those two types of people, introverts, shy, extroverts, life of the party? Well, you don't need to be loud to make real noise. That's the power of shyness. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole, for showing us how to be confident even when we are introverted, and that it's okay if we aren't exactly the life of the party. Hopefully, y'all have taken the time to notice the wonderful facility we are in today. Mrs. Harper, the Academic Services Coordinator here at Trinity Valley, will share a little bit more about TVS. Please give a huge round of applause and help me welcome Mrs. Tina Harper.
Good morning, almost lunchtime. Dr. Jeff began our first morning today talking about this being their room. And I'm quite honored to be standing in a room that has been the voice for so many amazing young people this morning and for 3 years here at Trinity Valley. Trinity Valley was started in 1959 for the Texas Boys Choir. Mr. Steven Cellini, our first headmaster, wanted to develop a place where young people could express their voice, become excellent in academics, and make a difference in the world. And so hosting TEDx here is just an absolute privilege. It's also amazing to see how small ideas can change the world. So Trinity Valley School actually began at the top floor of St. Ignatius Academy. If you've ever been there, it's a small Catholic building on Hemp Hill. And they actually held their classes in a kitchen. And if you look around, it's a pretty amazing place today. It's a place where children have the ability to express their ideas, to develop wide constructive interests. And I hope you enjoy the rest of these talks, and thank you for letting us share our facility with you.
Thank you, Miss Tina. We truly appreciate the hospitality of Trinity Valley School. Are y'all ready for lunch? Because I know I am. While you're enjoying the food out in the reception area, please remember to visit with the presenters, Tanish, Bailey, and Nicole. After eating and ideas, we will return and hear some more great talks and some videos in session 3.